So, welcome back. I'm going to tell y'all about this old school movie that I recently watched. It's called Friday. Friday. And it had rappers, actors, actresses in it. And it was about a man. I love movies more than I love TV shows, so you're gonna hear me talking about movies a lot on this channel. So the movie was about a man two men who were roommates, and one was a rapper and the other one was just an actor. And the two men, they lived together in a complex center, apartment or a townhouse, kind of like complex center. And like, I'm not sure if they were in low class, middle class, or high class, but I think they were in low class. And when they were sleeping, a break-in, someone broke into their house, a robber, and he didn't have any weapons, but he were just stealing all their stuff out of their house. And another thing is that it was around Christmas time, so they had a whole bunch of gifts, presents, packages, boxes all around in their house, just laying around in the living room. So when the robber broke into their house, he just grabbed what he saw, the first things he saw, which was the presents and the boxes and stuff. So he was robbing their apartment complex, just theirs, where they were living at, and he stole all their presents and boxes. And then one of the roommates, the rapper who raps, he woke up out of his sleep and caught the robber right-handed with all the gifts and all the presents in his hand. And he was like, "Get out of my house." He tried to shoo him away and scare him off. And he's like, "Get out. This is my house. You can't take my things." And the robber was like, "Oh no, I'm leaving with this stuff," basically telling the man that this is his stuff now. He's leaving with it and he's not giving it back, and he's not gonna take it from him. Like, "You can't get it because I have it. You can't take it from me." Ha ha, like that. And the man, he was like, "I am gonna take it," and he tried to chase after him where he was, get to where he was at, and chase him down and get his things back. And there was another man in the house who lived there, and whose stuff it was also. And the rapper, he was screaming like, "Help me, help me, help, help." And he couldn't hear him because he was sleeping. The actor, he couldn't hear him because he was sleeping. And when he got away, the man got away, he had woke up the actor who was sleeping, and he was like, "The house got robbed." And he was like, "What, our house got robbed?" He was sad, and he was like, "Our house got robbed." And they called the police, and the police came, because this was happening at dark time. You see, when it's dark outside, it happened. And so the police came the next morning and took a report on them about the incident. And while the police was there, they searched around and they didn't see anything wrong with the house and see anybody breaking in. So police officers didn't really wasn't really sure who broke into their house and how he broke in. And so then the police had found a marijuana plant, and they had confiscated their marijuana plant because they weren't able to keep a marijuana plant. Then that day they went to work. They had got a new job and they went to work because they needed the money. Now, the money, they had some money in their house that the robber had stolen out of their house, and it was for their bills and their rent, and they couldn't pay their rent because the robber stole all of their money. And so when the landlord caught them when they were on their way to work, she was like, "Oh, I need my money for rent." And they were like, "Oh, we're going to give you your money at the end of the day. By the end of this day, we'll give you your money because we started a new job and we'll be able to pay you your money." And she was like, "If you don't pay me my money, I'm going to kick y'all out, and I'm going to have my son come up here and kick y'all out because I'm not going to do it by myself." And so they were like, "You don't have to do that. We're going to have your money when you want it in your hand as soon as possible." So they went to work, and they work at a plasma center where there's a whole bunch of different shops right next door to each other and next to each other. And they work as security guards of the plasma center. So when they had signed up for their job, this was their first day going. They had seen the same guy who robbed their house, and they were like, "Let's get him! Like let's catch him now. We can catch him since we together. We can catch him since he don't see us. We can catch him because he's not that far from us. We can catch him. He's right there." So they ran up to this man who was dressed as the same guy who robbed their house last night, and they attacked him and knocked him down and started stumping him, beating him up and punching him for like 5 minutes. And then they knocked him down, and they figured out that it wasn't him. It was actually their father. It was actually the rapper's father and the actor's uncle. So they were actually family. And they figured it out that that wasn't the robber because he doesn't look like him. And so they stopped beating him up and punching him and kicking him. After they already punched him and kicked him and beat him up, they lift him up and dusted him off. And they were like, "We're sorry. We thought you were the person who robbed our house." And they were like, "What? Someone robbed your house? Who was it?" And they were like, "Well, we don't know who it was, but it was a man dressed up as Santa Claus." And so they were like, "That's why we thought it was you, because you have on a Santa Claus suit, just like the man did when he came in our house and robbed us." And he was like, "No, it's not me, but I know who you're talking about." And they all were talking about the man who robbed people, that he has been robbing a lot of other people around the neighborhood too, and they called him Santa Claus Crook. And then they work at this place. The place that they were in was their family restaurant, their dad's restaurant basically, and it was called Bros Barbecue, and they worked there. And they didn't work there, but they secured the area. They were security guards to secure the area. And so their dad got them the job because he was cool with the manager, because he had a business there where the manager works. So they went to the manager's business, and he worked at a donut shop, another restaurant, but it was for just donuts and other stuff too. And so when they went down there to their manager's business where he worked at, the manager was like, yeah, y'all are hired, y'all can work here, y'all start today. I need you to just carry whistles. And they were like, what if we need, to lock someone up? How are we gonna lock them up, and how are we gonna do all these things if you're not giving us any equipment that security guards usually have, like flashlights, handcuffs? He was like, oh, you don't need any of that. The manager was like, you don't need any of these things. All you need is a whistle. If you need help, just blow the whistle, and the police guards will come, and they will help you lock them up. So they were like, all right, and they continued to go. They didn't quit at that moment. So they were like, all right, and then he showed them to a booth where they work at, and they work in this booth watching the complexes and making sure nobody stands in front of the liquor store, making sure kids don't run around and break things, making sure nobody is stealing, making sure nobody's fighting, making sure none of these bad things is happening to the complex, and if it do, that they catch them and lock them up. So they were waiting in a complex, and then some ladies came by, and they started to sing in front of the liquor store. But the manager had told them that if someone comes and sings and stands in front of the liquor store, you have to tell them to move. So they tried to tell the ladies that, you have to move. You can't stand in front of this store. We work here. We're the security guards. We're moving anyone from standing in front of this spot. And she was like, oh, I can stand in front of this liquor store because we are people from the Lord, and we love the Lord, and we're just standing here singing. And she was like, well, y'all can't stand here. And she was like, okay, and then she moved. So then they waited again, and some kids started running through the complex center. And he was like, y'all can't run in front of here. And then the kids was like, leave us alone. And then the rapper was like, no, let's just leave the kids alone because they're kids. And so they left the kids alone and let them continue to run. And then they took a break and went behind the complex center and started smoking weed together behind a dumpster, a garbage bin. And so they were smoking weed together for about 5 minutes, and when they were smoking, their uncle Elroy, he came and heard something behind the garbage bin because they were bent down low, so you couldn't see anybody underneath the garbage bin or by the garbage bin. So he came and he knocked on the garbage bin and scared them. And they thought that it was a bad guy and stuff. And they were afraid. And he was like, oh no, it's just me, your Uncle Elroy. What y'all doing? Why y'all behind the dumpster? Don't y'all supposed to be working? And they were like, yeah, we just took a smoke break and da-da-da. And Uncle Elroy was like, well, let me get some of your weed. Let me smoke with y'all. So they all three just started smoking for about a few seconds. And then the Santa Claus crook, or the robber who just robbed their house last night, the man in a Santa Claus suit had popped up and came and robbed them again. Robbed their Uncle Elroy, the rapper, and the actor. Robbed them and held them at gunpoint. And he was like, give me all your jewelry that you have on, or all the money in your pocket. And they were like, we don't have no money. All he had was $1. The other man, he didn't have anything on him. And then the Uncle Elroy, he had a watch. And he had an expensive gold watch on his wrist. And the robber stole his watch. And he was like, I'm going to shoot. If y'all move, I'm going to shoot. So after he took all their jewelry and all the money out of their pocket, the Santa Claus robber had took off. And he started running back to where he lives at. And they were trying to follow him to where he lived at. So they started chasing him. The rapper and the uncle started chasing him down. And the actor had ran to get the police. So they ran and he ran to go get the police. And they was chasing him down. And the Santa Claus crook was faster than them. Jumped over some gates. And they couldn't follow him no more. So when they went to go get the police was moving really slowly when he found them. He was like, I'm trying to tell y'all that he just robbed us again, and y'all gotta help, and please. And the police were going really slow. And then a couple hours later, the police started taking a report for the people who robbed him. And he was like, I just want y'all to catch him because he robbed me, he stole my watch, and I just want y'all to catch him, but y'all acting like y'all don't want to do y'all job. And so police was like, we're going to catch him, we're going to get him, and all that. And so after that, the police had left, and someone had got caught robbing the store, and they caught them robbing it. She was stuffing clothes in her shirt from the clothing store that was in the complex. It was a clothing store there, and the security guards caught them and locked them up and called 911 to put them in prison. And so that's what happened. And then when they were going back to their lunch break, these boys, a group of men started pointing at them and looked really upset and mad. And they were like, why they look like that, and why they looking and pointing at us? And then the old ladies had came and they were like, get them, there they go right there. So they started running and chasing after them, and they were chasing them down. And they was jumping over gates, they were crawling through things, and they hid in a department store, the clothing store where they had caught the thieves at. They hid in there, and they climbed on top of the roof, and they were like, them the mans from the ladies that we told to move out the way. That's them. And they're chasing us down to beat us up. And so they was like, nah, we ain't gonna stay at this job because this job is too scary and dangerous. And so then they were like, we quit. And they took their uniforms off, threw it in a garbage can, and went back to their family's restaurant. And when they did that, the man, he was like, them two to the manager. He went to the manager's restaurant, the donut shop. He was like, those two men that you hired as security guards, tell them that we're looking for them. And punched the manager in the face. And then the manager found the security guards, and he was like, where was y'all at? And he was like, you said we can go on lunch break, so we went on our lunch break and we were eating lunch. And the manager was like, you were eating lunch and I was getting beat up. And then he was like, we didn't know, we were just eating lunch. And he was like, you're fired. He fired them. He was like, oh man, we fired. And they were mad because they got fired, and they didn't have no money to pay the rent. And so they went back home, and they were like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna throw a party and charge people to pay us to come in our party. And so they threw a party and they made enough money to pay their rent. But they were still bummed out because they was like, man, we couldn't find the robber. So then at the end of the movie, they end up finding where the robber lived at, taking their stuff back, locking him away, and paying their rent so they won't have to get evicted. And it was a real good movie. I loved the movie. It was super good. It had a lot of things in it, different things. For people in the low class, it's like people do a lot of stuff, and they are able to have a lot of fun. So I thought that it was very interesting, and I love the movie. It's called Friday, like the day of the week, and it's spelled like the day of the week as well, and it's real good. So peace and blessings.